I had this delightful lady who she liked to help everybody with blood pressure and medicine and all that stuff. And we've had this conversation, especially Herb and I have had this conversation. She would always want to check my blood pressure on Sunday morning, and she goes, "Brother Mike, I'm concerned about your blood pressure." It's like, lady, have you noticed what I'm doing here? It's like, this is not, and I'm normally a calm, low blood pressure kind of person. But so Sundays are kind of busy for a pastor. And, but I love being your pastor. I love getting to do the things that I get to do. And I'm getting more and more comfortable with being your pastor. When I started out, I wasn't all that comfortable, but let me tell you some things that I think about the position of being a pastor over a church, because Revelation is written to 7 churches, but it's also written to 7 shepherds, 7 pastors. So it means it's written to me. And so, what is the role of a husband to a wife? Well, it's to serve his wife, to love his wife the way Jesus loves the church. Now, that means I'm supposed to love my wife the way Jesus loves the church. I'm supposed to serve my wife the way Jesus served the church. Now, I don't get to be the Lord over my wife the way Jesus is the Lord over the church. That's going a little too far. But then what is a pastor? Well, a pastor is the servant leader of the body. We're going to take we'll just go wherever this leads this morning. A couple of weeks ago, I went to a young woman over here, a friend of Rebecca, Amanda. She's a physical therapist or massage therapist. And I walk in, and she goes, "Are you stressed?" And it's like, "Why do you say that?" She goes, "Because you're like humped over." It's like, okay, no, that's my normal stand. And so we talked about, I'm one of those people, I carry stress in my shoulders and back and all that other stuff. I do a lot of stuff in front of me. Thanks, Dave. I do a lot of stuff over me. So I have a tendency to be one of those guys who my shoulders come forward. Now, when I was 13, I weighed 120 pounds, and I was this tall. And I remember all those times my dad would say, "Throw your shoulders back, throw your shoulders back." So apparently this is not something new for me, where my shoulders just kind of normally come forward. But there's another aspect of it that you may or may not know. I am not a cocky person. I'm a very humble person. And so for me, when I see people strutting around like this, I think, man, that's really kind of annoying. So I don't throw my shoulders back, because it's it's the same reason for years I would take my glasses off to talk to somebody, because I grew up wearing sunglasses. Florida, you wear sunglasses, and my dad taught me, you always take your sunglasses off so people can see your eyes. So it was a force of habit. So how many of y'all know sometimes when you have a habit in your life, no matter how bad or annoying it is, it's hard to break? So why am I saying all this? Well, because as your pastor, I have an authority. I have an authority to serve you, but I believe that Jesus' model of authority is the upside-down triangle, the upside-down pyramid, where he's not at the top saying, "Everybody must do what I say," but he's at the bottom saying, "I serve everybody. I'm here to serve everybody." And so this morning, as I come to you, I want to say, last week we looked at the church at Thyatira, and we talked about this person, Jezebel. Now, was that actually her name? We don't know. If you want to be absolutely literal, yes, it was her name. But it was a type of person that had come from inside the church and had begun to redirect people in the church away from the pure gospel. And remember, pure means 100%. If you pick up a jar, and it says 99% pure, you should scratch out the word pure, because the only thing pure is 100%. They are diluting the gospel, and as soon as you add or subtract anything from the gospel, you don't have Jesus' gospel anymore. You have somebody else's gospel. And this is a type of person or a group of people who come in, and for their own gain, for their own glory, for their own passions, they want to come in and they want to take over the church. This is the person that they've been here 1 week, and they want to start this group, or they want to start leading. Pastor, would you mind if next Sunday I preached and you just sit down and let me tell you everything that you've been doing wrong? I don't have anybody like that here. But I'm just saying we even may call it the spirit of Jezebel, but that's what was going on. This week we see a different thing that's happening, but it's not happening from within the church. It's happening outside the church, and the church isn't isn't standing up to it. And the pastor, especially last week in Thyatira and today in Sardis, the pastor is not standing up and saying, whoa, no, this is my flock to protect. I'm the shepherd who protects this flock. Now, I'm excited when, there are some people that just look like they could throw down on you, and then there's some people who are nice and kind. My brown teddy bear is coming out. That's a thing between Kelly and I. But I just want to say, as a pastor, I ask that you would pray for me, that I would have the boldness when I see something that doesn't need to be in amongst the flock, that I have the boldness, the strength to go and grab it and say, no, not here. Not here in this place, not now. Because one of my main jobs is what? Is to protect you guys, is to nourish you guys. So I need to be nourished, and I need to be ready and aware and alert and all that other stuff. And I have to be honest, there are times I'm pretty easily distracted, squirrel. So we're going to kind of talk about this today. So Ephesus is a church full of good works. They love good doctrine. They love knocking on doors. They love, except for one problem. They've stopped loving the most important thing, and that is the Lord. And they've stopped letting the love of the Lord be their motivation to do the things that they were doing. The church at Smyrna was a church that was thriving under persecution, which makes sense, because had you had to walk in here under threat of death, you're not going to pretend to be something that's going to get you killed. Now, I remember back years ago, and this really is a long time ago. How many of y'all remember when there was an Opryland theme park? Okay. Well, a lot of guys that I went to college with, and gals, they wanted to work out at Opryland as performers. I don't know why, I never wanted to do that. But it was amazing to me how at that point, it was a few years ago, and the whole gay movement was just really beginning to be noticed, but especially in the arts, and especially out there at Opryland, there were a couple of people who were directors, and they were outwardly gay, okay? So there were some young guys who would pretend to be gay because they knew that would get me a better spot in the show. I would have a chance because they'll pull me in. And that's kind of weird, but sometimes people will pretend to be really good, or they'll pretend to be really bad to kind of fit in. In the church at Smyrna, it could cost you your life. When they said, "Are you a Christian?" there was a chance that you might lose your life over that, or at least you would lose your ability to do business, and you could lose your livelihood. So it's not that surprising that the church of Smyrna was thriving, because it was all 100%, all in kind of people. Then you had the church at Pergamos. Pergamos was coexisting with false religions. They were losing their true identity. This was an external force of a lost society. I know that every church has its own identity. Every church has its own DNA, and I'm not speaking against any particular church. I think, though, in the church, if we give away everything that separates us from the world, what do we have left to give? We have to be salt and light. We have to be a beacon on a hill. We can't just be, we're just going to look like everybody else and do what everybody else does. Then we're just everybody else. But God's called us to be separate, to be different, to be a different type of person. And then last week, Thyatira's leadership was not taking a stand against a major competitor inside the church. This could be a result of a weak or a non-visionary leader. It could just be simply somebody who doesn't want to be seen as the guy who shuts stuff down. Again, for those of you who don't know, when Sally and I came here, I'd been on staff at First Baptist Church White House for 14 years. We came here. We were on staff for the first few years. And then, but when I stepped up as pastor, there were a lot of people who were like, well, he's not from a spirit-filled church. He's a Baptist, so he's not going to be okay on a lot of things. So I would approach a lot of things as being, I don't want I don't want to be the guy who, he just runs in and shuts stuff down because he doesn't understand it. So guess what? I made mistakes on the other side of letting some stuff go that I should never have done. I remember sitting watching our third oldest daughter be prophesied over, and it was just all garbage and junk. And if that were to happen now, I believe I would handle it very different than how I handled it then, going, this must be good, this must be right, I don't know, I can't run up, I don't want to be, Mike, shut it down. I would shut it down today because I've grown enough in the prophetic and understanding that, look, when you start saying, you start pointing somebody's problems out in the group and all this other stuff, that is not from the Lord, because that's not how he does that. So I said all that to say, sometimes, you've been there, it's a group meeting, there are 5 or 6 of you there, and there seems to be a lack of a vacuum of leadership. You always have at least 2 people who are willing to step up into that vacuum, right? Well, the spirit of Jezebel is one that kind of goes around and looks for that slightest little vacuum and goes, I can fill that spot, I can fill that spot, I can fill that spot. And why do they do it? Well, because they love the Lord. No, because they love themselves. And they know if I can be in charge, I can make everything work exactly like I want it. I can feed all my passions. I can feed all my ministries. I can have my friends in place and ... So that it's not of the Lord. So today we're going to go into the book of the church at Sardis. And so I want us to look at this. Anybody know anything about Sardis? Sardis was the capital of the area. They were supposedly impenetrable. I realize today that has an M in it, not an N. I kept trying to find the word impenetrable. It's impenetrable. In other words, it wasn't supposed to be defeated. You can see it was a city on a hill. There was no way to just saunter up to the gate and take over this town. So it was a military fortress. But guess what had happened twice in its history? It had gotten invaded. And guess what happened when the people figured out how to get in the city? They found the city was asleep, like a thief in the night while you're sleeping, okay? This is where that phrase comes from. This is where that philosophy comes from. So when Jesus says to the people who live in the city, who you remember when you were asleep on the job and the thief came in at night? Okay, that's what I can do. So it all ties in. And Artemis is the god of Sardis. Artemis is the god of nature, the god of things coming to life and things going away. But Jesus is going to say, no, I am the God. I am the real power here. I am the real authority. So Sardis is a very, very cool town. Also, we'll get to this later. Sardis is one of their main industries is wool linen. And Jesus is going to talk about the linen that's white as snow, the white garment. See, Jesus always meets us where we are, and he speaks in our language. One of the things we think sometimes, okay, was that Jesus or was that me? Was that God speaking to me or that was me? Because it sounded a whole lot like my voice. Well, Mark Verkler says, whose voice is God going to speak to you through? You don't know his voice, so a lot of times he's going to speak to you in a voice that you're comfortable with, in your own voice. So Jesus likes to come in and talk to us in a way that we can relate to, and so that's what happens. So Sardis, capital city of Lydia, it has 5 major travel routes that connect there, that merge, so it's obviously going to be a center of trade. King Croesus, whatever. He was the first king to have a standard gold coin, and his coin was so good that it gained acceptance in other cities. So he is actually the first king to ever have a coin that would have value in other places other than just for its raw material. So it's a pretty important place. This is a